let's rip the bandage off right now. Jeremiah's arc in The Summer I Turned Pretty was never about love. Not once. Not for a single second. And if that sounds harsh, good. Because sometimes the truth is harsh. Jeremiah's story has been about one thing, and one thing only: control. Every kiss, every promise, every teardrop at the altar has been less about connection and more about competition. Now, let's play a game of honesty here. Think back to when the love triangle first exploded onto our screens. Did Jeremiah chase Belly because he was consumed by an earth-shattering, once-in-a-lifetime love? Or did he chase her because Conrad had her first? Be real. It wasn't about soulmates. It wasn't about destiny. It was about winning. About proving to himself, and maybe to us, that he could take what his brother wanted. And that right there, my friends, isn't romance. It's rivalry wrapped in summer sunsets and wedding vows. But here's where it gets darker. Jeremiah never stopped competing. Even when he had Belly, even when he stood at the altar ready to claim forever, it wasn't about the vows. It was about the scoreboard. The kiss wasn't, "I love you." It was, "I beat you." That's not love. That's a sport. And Conrad has been the opposing team since day one. And yet, the writers want us to feel sympathy. They want us to cry for Jeremiah, to shake our fists at Belly's betrayal, to mourn the poor jilted groom. But here's the uncomfortable question. Betrayed by who? Belly? No. She simply realized she couldn't marry someone for the wrong reasons. Conrad? No, he only told the truth. The only person Jeremiah's really been betrayed by is himself. Now pause. Let's sit in that for a second. What if the finale flipped the script entirely? What if Jeremiah wasn't redeemed with Denise, or saved by some shiny new career path, but instead was forced to confront the brutal truth that he was the architect of his own downfall? Would that finally make him likable to you? Or would you still roll your eyes and mutter, "Too little, too late"? Tell me in the comments, because I need to know. Does anyone still believe in Jeremiah's redemption arc? And here's the pain point the show doesn't want you to see. Jeremiah doesn't grow when people forgive him. He shrinks. He decays. He gets worse. Look at Belly. Every time she gave him another chance, he dug the hole deeper. Look at Laurel. She forgave him at Christmas, and what did he do? He went right back to his self-pity routine. Look at Denise. Even she coddled him, letting him crash, letting him mope, letting him off the hook. The only time Jeremiah took a step forward, the only moment he even looked like he was evolving, was when Conrad, the one person who refuses to sugarcoat, finally stood up and said, "Enough." And that right there is the forbidden knowledge nobody wants to say out loud. Jeremiah doesn't evolve through love. He evolves through confrontation. Pressure creates diamonds, right? But Jeremiah has been living in a pillow factory. No pressure. No accountability. No consequences. And that's why he's still emotionally stuck at 17, no matter how many summer parties, weddings, or dramatic speeches the writers throw at us. Now let's pull back the curtain a little further. Because Jeremiah's shadow doesn't just come from Conrad. It comes from Adam Fisher, his father. Jeremiah's need to impress, to be the golden son, to soak up approval like sunlight, that's been the engine under the hood the entire time. And when Adam finally cut him off financially, that should have been the moment. The collapse. The rock bottom that forces a boy to become a man. But what happened? The show robbed us. His friends rushed in, caught him before he could fall. And without the fall, how can there ever be a rise? And let's not forget Denise. Don't get me wrong, Denise was introduced as strong, sharp, unflinching. But the second she got paired with Jeremiah, she folded. She softened. She became another safety net. Suddenly, Jeremiah's a promising chef, a man finding his footing, all because Denise said so. But where's the work? Where's the evidence? Cleaning up tissues doesn't count as character growth. That's not an arc. That's a smoke screen. And listen, if you're tired of shows sugarcoating characters the way Jeremiah's been coddled, hit subscribe right now. Because here, we don't play favorites. We don't hand out free passes. We pull back the curtain and talk about what's really going on. Now, let me throw a hypothetical at you, because this is where the finale could sting the most. Imagine if Jeremiah lost Denise. Imagine if she stood tall, refused to coddle him, and walked away. Would that finally force him to look in the mirror? Would it crack the golden boy mask? Or would the writers chicken out and slap a happy ending bow on him anyway? Because let's be real, we've been burned before. How many shows promise payoff, only to cave at the finish line with fan service fluff? I'm still not over Game of Thrones, and you know some of you aren't either. The fear here is that The Summer I Turned Pretty will go down that same path, serving comfort food instead of real resolution. Jeremiah getting Denise. Jeremiah thriving as a chef, It looks nice on paper, but it tastes as hollow as that chocolate raspberry cake he whined about. And speaking of that cake, let me roast myself for a second. Because the way Jeremiah complained about it, I felt that. Not because I agree with him, but because if someone gave me chocolate when I asked for vanilla, I'd sulk too. But here's the difference. I wouldn't drag 3 entire seasons of drama around it. Jeremiah takes small problems and inflates them into lifelong vendettas. And tell me that doesn't remind you of that one friend we all have. The one who turns a spilled drink into a conspiracy theory. But here's the forbidden knowledge the show tries to bury under summer vibes and pretty cinematography. Jeremiah doesn't deserve a happy ending until he suffers consequences. Period. Without that, every resolution is fake. And right now, the writers are dangling the illusion of growth, but illusions only work if the audience still wants to believe. And I think most of us are done believing. So here's the real question. The tension that will decide the fate of the finale. Will Jeremiah finally face the consequences he's dodged for 3 seasons? Or will he be handed the fantasy ending he hasn't earned? And trust me, we're only scratching the surface. Because Jeremiah's biggest secret isn't about Belly. It isn't about Conrad. It isn't even about Denise. Jeremiah's biggest battle has always been with himself, and the writers might be hiding one last forbidden truth that could change everything. So here's the thing. We ended page 1 with a dangerous idea. Jeremiah's real fight isn't Belly, isn't Conrad, isn't even Denise. His biggest battle is the one he refuses to have with himself. And if you think that sounds dramatic, just wait. Because once you start tracing Jeremiah's decisions back, thread by thread, every knot ties to the same ugly truth. Jeremiah can't stop running from the mirror. Let's start with Adam Fisher again. Because trust me, this man's ghost haunts every move Jeremiah makes. Adam raised Jeremiah to be the golden son, the boy who smiles, who charms, who never makes trouble. Perfect on the outside, hollow on the inside. And what did Jeremiah learn from that? That love is performance. That approval is a prize. That being, the easy one, would always be his ticket. But here's the forbidden knowledge that approval isn't love. It never was. Jeremiah spent his whole life being rewarded for smiling, for being convenient, for being less complicated than Conrad. And when you live like that, you start mistaking performance for affection. You start mistaking applause for love. And then suddenly, when you're 20, standing at an altar, you realize that there's nothing underneath. And I want to throw this back to you guys. Do you know someone like that? The person who thrives when they're praised, but collapses the second someone criticizes them. Drop it in the comments if that hits home, because Jeremiah is textbook. He's the golden boy who never learned to fall. Now, let's talk about Denise, because her role in Jeremiah's story might be the most controversial of all. At first, she looked like fire. Sharp tongue, unflinching, refusing to let Jeremiah play victim. And what did we think? Finally, someone to challenge him. Someone to pop the bubble wrap and let the boy breathe real air. But instead she folded. She became another caretaker. She adjusted to him, rather than forcing him to adjust to reality. And with that, Jeremiah's growth got smothered in a velvet blanket. Here's the hot take: Denise isn't Jeremiah's redemption. She's his enabler. Harsh, maybe. True, absolutely. Because every time Denise props Jeremiah up, every time she excuses his sulking or paints his cooking as brilliance, she protects him from the one thing he needs most: consequence. Now imagine if she didn't. Imagine a finale where Denise looked Jeremiah in the eyes and said, "I'm not here to be your therapist. I'm not here to babysit your grief. Grow up or lose me." Can you imagine the earthquake that would cause? Tell me in the comments. Would that finally crack the golden mask? Or would Jeremiah just go find another safety net? And speaking of safety nets, let's not forget Belly. Oh, Belly! The girl at the center of the storm. For 3 seasons, she was Jeremiah's trophy, his prize, his win over Conrad. But what happens when the trophy refuses to sit on the shelf? Belly's final decision shattered Jeremiah's fantasy. And instead of forcing him to confront his hollow motivations, the show spins it as tragedy. Poor Jeremiah. Poor broken boy. But let's be real, was it tragedy, or was it justice? Because if we're brutally honest, Belly didn't betray Jeremiah. She freed him. She freed him from the game he couldn't stop playing. She tore away the scoreboard. And Jeremiah's refusal to see that. That's not heartbreak. That's immaturity. Now let's pull in Conrad, because here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Conrad doesn't coddle. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't play therapist. He tells the truth, even when it hurts.